guys.
Welcome. Welcome to Family STEAM.
Family STEAM food version, Miss Nikki.
Ooh, I love me a good food, Miss Jen.
I feel like we're entering the holiday season. Excuse me, you guys. Lots of fun celebrations coming up. Maybe some time with family, and a lot of times it's focused around food.
Sure is. I know my family definitely loves to eat. What about yours?
Oh my gosh. It's a given that we love to eat in my house and my extended family. So I think one thing that's kind of universal, because there's so many holidays, we just had Halloween,
Yes.
Thanksgiving, Diwali, Hanukkah, Christmas,
Kwanzaa.
Yes, there's so many. And one thing I've seen when you study other cultures and you read, which you learn a lot about other cultures when you read books, is there's a lot of times bread mentioned, some version of carbohydrate or bread. So,
Yes.
So
It
today
might have a different name or a different texture, but
yes, some version of it. So today we're gonna make bread.
ooh, I love bread. Miss
Oh my gosh, me too. Totally love. Garlic bread's my favorite, but I love all versions of bread.
What about you, friends? Do you like bread?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. There's wheat, there's rye, there's 7 grain, there's 21
Pumpernickel.
grain. Yes, there's garlic bread where you add some other things on
Yum,
top. Yeah, there's
yes.
focaccia. I mean, there's so many
Yes.
baguettes.
There's
I could go
many.
on and on. There's
yes,
a lot.
there is so many.
And then one of the best things with bread is, Miss Nikki.
Well, you know, friends, that if you've got bread, you want a little bit of flavoring, and there's lots of things you can do. You can put oil on it, you can put garlic, like Miss Jen said, but one of my favorite things, and maybe yours, is butter.
Oh my gosh, I love good butter, like
Me
good yummy butter.
too.
As a matter of fact, I think Elda, one of our other friends at Gale Borden, did a whole recipe lately of compound butter, which is like flavored butter that she did online for everybody. So
And there are just as many types of bread there's lots of types of butter as well. There's cinnamon butter and garlic butter, and oh my goodness.
there's
cheesy
true,
butter.
sweet or savory.
Yes.
We should point out too, a lot of times you've seen us outside. Miss Nikki and I are in the building today. It's kind of rainy out. So
Yeah.
if we're in the building, just as we always do when we're inside, and we ask all of you to do, we got our masks on today.
We
So
sure do. Oh no, Miss Jen, and I just realized something. If we're gonna be bakers today, because we're baking some bread, I guess I better put my hair back so we don't eat any of my hair, huh?
that's probably true. My hair is pretty short, so that's not an option. However, I did just wash my hands thoroughly, because that's the cook or chef's or baker's #1 thing is
Same with me.
clean hands and hair back if you need to. So we're gonna do
Right.
that. Why don't I start explaining a little while you're getting prepared, Miss Nikki?
Sounds good.
So I'm gonna be attempting the bread portion. I'm gonna be honest, friends, and you guys know I love to bake from other programs too. Never made bread before, so I'm a little nervous, but it's fun. And it's a lot of science in baking, especially baking. You might hear the difference between, what is the difference between cooking and baking? Cooking can be a little more forgiving, that's savory foods or breakfast foods. Baking, there's a lot of chemistry involved and a lot of measurements, so.
Right, so lots of science happening when we are baking in
Yes.
our kitchens.
Absolutely, so we're gonna explain that a little bit today too, but if you do something not quite right, we'll see what happens as a result. So.
Yes, and you may notice that we have our aprons on today.
Yes, we
You
do.
might have a fancy hat, Chef, if you like. We do not have our eye protection on today because we're not going to be doing any major splashing.
No.
And everything that we do is safe
Yes.
and edible.
Yes, good
So
point,
we
Miss
are
Nikki.
okay to proceed. So hopefully you are good to go as well.
Yes, no chemicals that are a problem, so. Okay, that's a good point, Miss Nikki. All right, so I'm gonna start a little bit and then we'll dive into the butter too, because bread is kind of an interesting process, Miss Nikki, friends out there, because it's like a stop and start thing. And a lot of that is based in the science. So let me just get this activated and we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Our recipe, and we can do a link to the recipe in Facebook in
So
case
you
you guys
can do
wanna
it at
try
home?
it. Yeah, exactly, if you wanna try it. So I have 2 cups of warm water,
2 cups.
so we're gonna
okay.
put that in our bowl.
And how warm would you say it needs to be, Miss Jen?
So I read anywhere from 105 to 115 degrees, which sounds so warm.
Sounds hot.
But since our bodies are 98.6, it surprisingly isn't too hot.
So
But
we could drink 100.
we probably could, yeah. It'd be
Without burning our
warm, but it
tongue.
wouldn't burn us.
Okay.
And the reason we're doing that is I want to dissolve some sugar. So I'm going to take 1 tablespoon of white sugar and dissolve it in the water. So if the water's warm, it'll help it dissolve. So I'm going to do that. And here's what's going on, friends. Bread usually, not always, but usually, has yeast in it. Okay, there are some non-yeast breads, but a majority of them have yeast. Why do we have yeast? What does yeast do? Yeast is a tiny plant microorganism. It's very small. I'll try to show you guys on the camera in a little bit. And what happens is it eats or feeds on sugar. So, and it's the oldest living microorganism around that we use for food.
Really?
Yes, it's very tiny, and humans have figured that out, thousands of years ago.
Without even being able to see the microorganism.
Right, somehow we figured that out. And what happens is when it reacts, when it is eating, so we eat food, right, to digest and get energy. When the yeast eats food,
Okay.
it emits carbon dioxide.
Oh, so the yeast is getting hungry,
Yep.
and as it eats, it's shooting some carbon dioxide.
Right, just like when we digest and have to, right, you have waste that you do. So when it eats, it creates, whether some process, chemical process, carbon dioxide.
And is it true, Michelle? I think that's sort of similar to when we breathe out, right?
Yes.
We breathe out carbon dioxide.
Exactly.
So some of the same gases that we have in our
The
body.
yeast, yeah, well, exactly, will emit. And what happens is it creates a gas, right? Carbon dioxide is a gas. So if you have that trapped inside something like flour and other ingredients,
heavy.
yes, it's going to create little air bubbles.
Oh, okay.
And we've all noticed when we cut into a really pretty loaf of bread, it's kind of like bubbly inside
Yeah,
or
like a
textured.
bubble wrap.
Yes, or like honeycomb or something.
Yes.
And that is from those little pockets of air in there. And then as they cook, they, pop. And you're
Yes.
left with these empty pockets inside your bread.
Mm.
So I dissolved my sugar in the water.
And what does dissolve mean, Miss Jen?
So basically it means we started with a solid, right friends, we started with sugar, granules, and because I got the water warm enough, the sugar appears to have disappeared.
Okay.
So we can no longer see the sugar in the water.
Got it. So we have a little bit of salt, but a lot of water.
Yes,
And that means that they kind of mix together
yes,
so that we see more water than we see salt.
exactly.
But if we
So
were to taste it, it would
we would taste it, yes.
salt water.
A little bit, yeah, for sure. Yeah, not something you probably want to taste.
Yuck.
Wouldn't hurt you, but wouldn't
Yes.
be very tasty.
Like the ocean.
That's right. So since I dissolved the sugar, we know that that's one thing that the yeast likes to eat. So I'm now going to add the yeast. So let's see here. So I need the tablespoon of sugar, and then I need 1.5 tablespoons of active dry yeast. So
So that's the yeast you were talking about, Miss Jen.
Yes.
That microorganism.
it's contained in here,
Okay.
and it's very small. Miss Nikki, do you want to get close to the camera with a little?
Dude, you want to pour some in my hand? Miss
Yeah,
Jen?
and I'll let you do that while I get ready.
Oh,
It is so
It is-
tiny.
Oh, you're right. Talk about micro, friends.
It's amazing.
Let's see if you can.
So I'm going to stir in my yeast. I need 1.5 tablespoons.
Every one of those little pebbles is some yeast. And it's sort of brown, almost looks a little grainy. Ooh, it's raining yeast. It's raining yeast. But it feels very dry, Miss Jen.
It does. It's interesting. And unfortunately, we don't have smell-o-vision at the library, even though Miss Nikki and I work with STEAM. But I think a lot of people, when they think of what does bread smell like, it's that yeast that you're smelling. It kind of has a distinctive smell to it.
So I'm seeing now that it went from sort of watercolor clear to a little bit more brown.
Yes.
A little light brown tan color.
And cloudy, too.
The brilliance.
Yes, you can see it's cloudy. And there's some bubbles forming, which is good. So now we're going to let that, it's called proofing. You're going to hear that term several times. Miss Nikki and I are both fans of the Great British Bake Off.
We sure are.
And you will hear proofing is one of the words when it comes up to working with yeast quite a bit. So we're going to allow that to sit in here.
And don't be fooled, friends. Proofing is not like when you're a detective and you need proof or evidence.
No,
It's
exactly.
a different kind of proof,
It is.
right?
It's giving some time for the chemical reactions
Like
to take
resting.
place.
So if you want to take a nap, you can say, hey, Mom and Dad, I'm going to go have a proof.
I'm going to proof for a little bit. So while this is starting to do its thing, you want to talk a little bit about butter, Miss Nikki?
Absolutely. Well, you know, I love butter, Miss Jen. I mean, I just love it. I have it on everything. I have it on pancakes. I have it on bread.
Yes.
I have it on pizza. No, I'm just kidding. I sometimes have it
Vegetables.
on vegetable spaghetti. I love butter on my
Oh my
spaghetti.
gosh, buttered noodles, yes.
So many things. So, you know, there's lots of different ways to make butter,
There are.
but there's some simple ways that we can do with just some things around our house, and even sometimes less than 2 or 3 ingredients.
That's right.
One thing that's really interesting is that just like using yeast, people have been making butter for a very, very long time. You might have heard that song that goes, churn, butter, churn, churn, butter, churn. Well, churning is all about movement, right? So that's something that we're gonna do today in order to make butter. So in order to make butter, we're gonna have some movement. But what are we moving? Well, we are going to be using, shake this up, something called heavy whipping cream. right, Miss Jen?
It is. Sometimes it's just called heavy cream because people
Yes.
sometimes ask heavy cream or heavy whipping cream or whipping cream, and it's got a ton of fat in it. I mean, that's how with all these dairy products, right? I don't know, friends out there, if you're milk drinkers, and I mean dairy milk, there's skim milk, there's 2%. A lot of that has to do with the fat content
Yes.
in your liquid. So
Absolutely. So this is going to have the most fat of most of the milk products or the dairy products that we have. So you can see I'm shaking it up, and look, it even has whipping right in the name, heavy whipping. So we know we're going to be whipping and churning. So, okay. What we need is our heavy whipping cream. Thank you.
sure.
And some sort of container that will have a lid. So I have a mason jar, and I also have a plastic container. And we're actually going to do a little experiment while we're making our butter. We're going to see which type of material provides a better consistency of butter. So we're going to see.
Right, and will it go quicker in one than the other?
Exactly. So what we're going to do is take our heavy whipping cream and we're going to pour it in. Ooh. We're going to make it about halfway full. So half empty, half full. I'm going to come up real close so you guys can see it.
I didn't know too if you want to put those marbles in the plastic one
Yeah.
instead. Okay.
Yep. So you can see it's about a little bit more than
It's
halfway
very
full.
thick, isn't it, Miss
It
Nikki? If you're
is.
looking at it, it's very,
Yeah.
very thick. Coats the side of the glass and
I don't think I'd want to just drink this, Miss Jen, like with
no,
my
it's
cereal.
very rich, yeah.
Yes, no.
And very thick.
But you know what else you can use? What you can make out of heavy whipping cream? Whipped cream!
Yes, that's true, which I love that too, so.
Okay, so we have our glass jar, but sometimes the container you use can make a very big difference
Yes.
when you're baking or when you're cooking. So now we're going to try our plastic container. Now friends, we said that butter, to make butter, we're going to have to do some movement. We're going to have to shake, churn, or whip this heavy whipping cream.
That's right. Thus the name, the whipping part, right?
Right.
We're used to buying whipped cream like at the store, and that's because it is cream like this that has been whipped up at a
Already.
speed, yes, and
Yes.
jostled around.
Okay, we got to make sure now
Make
that,
sure that's on time.
that our
isn't it?
lid is on tight. We don't want any
Try
spills.
this, yeah, see if it's, make sure, yeah, okay,
Okay,
good.
we're good.
We like to make a mess, friend, but only within certain,
That's
We're
right.
trying to
we don't
control
want to
what we
waste
can.
our food ingredients.
no, we don't.
Now, we're actually going to add something to our plastic container. So not only are we going to use a different material, a material that's not quite as hard as our glass jar, we're actually going to add something that we're going to see, we're going to test it, and see if this helps with the movement. We're going to add some marbles. And these are just glass marbles. I've washed them off so they're clean. We're going to see if these help the movement by shaking from the inside.
I kind of love that idea, because you're externally shaking it,
Yes.
and then you're adding something inside that'll be shaking it, so,
And I already made a mess, Miss Jen. I guess I'm the first one.
so we'll see how it goes.
Good thing I've got my apron on. All right, tightening up that lid.
Oh, yes.
And while Miss Jen gets back to her butter, or her bread, she's bread on butter right now.
That's right.
Then I am going to start my shaking. So all you have to do, make sure that lid is tight,
Really tight, yes.
tight. Test it by gently turning it over. Ooh, and it sounds like ice cubes in here.
It does.
And when I turn this one over, it's quiet. And now, I'm gonna shake. Shake, 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 shake. So I'm gonna keep shaking.
Okay, and I'll take over with Freddie.
Yes.
One thing for Miss Nikki to listen for, especially in this one's a little hard because of the marbles, this one, if she starts hearing clump, a louder sound, like thump, 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 that means something is starting to happen, and we'll
Yes.
talk about what's happening once it occurs, so.
And if you feel like the liquid, which right now is sort of shifting to the top and the bottom is like shake it or whip it or churn, baby churn, then you know that it's starting to work.
That's right, it'll start to feel different in your
Yep,
hand, too,
it'll
which is
start to
great, because
feel
we're gonna see again the difference, feel the difference, we're gonna use our different senses to see what's happening.
Exactly.
Okay, so our yeast has been kind of eating its sugar, water in here. Now I'm supposed to add in the remaining sugar to give it more food, salt, and oil. So I'm gonna do a half a cup of sugar, so let me do that. So we're gonna give this yeast even more food, friends.
Oh, it's hungry,
It
hungry.
is,
And you said we started out with water,
yes,
and we did sugar,
yes,
then we did our yeast,
yep,
now we have our salt.
Yes, we're gonna do that too. That adds a little bit of flavor and helps aid in the chemical reaction. So we're gonna do, there's my sugar. So that was a 1/2 cup. And then salt is a very small amount. Doesn't take much salt to have a lot of flavor. So it's 1.5 teaspoons. So this is my 1 teaspoon. So let me get that in here and I'll stir in a second.
Shake, shake, shake and stir. So these are 2 things. Gotta be pretty fit. You're doing some exercise.
Right? Get some arm workout, guys.
Shake and stir here.
Now, Miss Jen has a bad habit, I will say that as a cook who bakes lots of pouring over. Probably not a good idea, especially if we're working with kids. So you should really pour things like off to the side. So there's 1 teaspoon, and then I need another 1/2 teaspoon of salt.
And measurement, exact measurement, is very, very important because we're talking about chemical reactions.
We are.
When you want certain things to happen, it has to be precise. So that's why we have our measuring instruments.
Yes, and I'm being very careful. So there's the 1/2. So there's our salt. A lot of times too, this is just me. When I'm done with an ingredient in baking, I'll kind of set it aside so that I know that's done. So we're done with the sugar.
Oh, that's a great idea. So we'll put that
Done
to
with the
side.
salt. Yep, done with the salt.
Okay.
So now the oil, and this is of course like a viscous, more liquid than solid.
Yes.
So I need a special, again, like we call this a liquid measuring cup for that. So I need, let's see, 1/4 cup vegetable oil.
So I notice you're measuring in cups.
Yes.
And in
And teaspoons.
spoons.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Exactly.
those are standards of measurements, like inches
Yep.
or feet or miles.
Okay. The 1/4 cup is not much, but we're gonna put that in. I will need the oil again, so I'm gonna leave it off to the side.
Okay.
So it says mix remaining sugar, salt, and oil into the yeast. So there that goes. And then I'm gonna stir it a little bit. You can see the oil doesn't really wanna be friends with the water base. Oil and water don't mix. Again, we talked about that before, Nikki.
Good thing we're not oil and water, Miss Jen.
Right? Absolutely. We're like bread and butter.
We're
not
like
oil
bread and butter.
we're
We
like
go
bread and butter.
together.
That's right. We're a active steam set. Okay.
That's true.
So I'm gonna stir this up a little bit.
I hear the sound.
And it does sound a little scratchy because the sugar's in there now and the salt, which are
Yeah.
crystals,
It's
right?
like sand.
Yes, it's gritty, exactly. It does sound like sand. How's the butter going, Miss Nikki?
We're churning.
All right.
My arms are going to be very strong by the end of this, friends.
Now I will say, even though this is quite a bit of liquid, the biggest ingredient in bread is usually some type of flour.
Yes, I was wondering about that because I see this big bag here.
Yes.
We haven't used it at all.
No, did you want to talk about flour a little bit, Miss Nikki?
I would love to talk about flour. I love flowers. They smell so nice. They're so colorful.
They are. I think maybe a different one than that.
Oh,
but
wait, we're not putting that kind of flour in there?
we are not.
Oh, okay. No, so we're talking about flour that comes from grains or seeds. So sometimes you might see, because we live in Illinois, we have a lot of farms
We do.
and a lot of plots of land. You might see wheat growing or rye growing in the fields. Like Miss Jen said, there was different types of bread. That's because there's just different types of grains.
That's right.
Well, in order to make flour, what we do is we harvest those grains, and then they get crushed up and refined by getting cut really, 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 really small, smaller than the microorganism that is yeast, into a fine powder called flour. And there are lots of types of flour, Miss Jen.
There are.
There is, let's see if we can name some.
Well, white flour,
White flour,
rye flour,
yep.
whole wheat flour. I think spelt is one that's more of a,
You're
you hear that
right.
more modern. A lot of people go gluten-free now, which is tricky.
Yes.
You have to find alternate rice flour, because we go
I think
gluten-free in
there's
my house.
coconut flour, but I'm
There
not.
might be almond flour.
Yeah,
Now we take
almond,
some
that's what-
other
yes.
other items and grind them, because really to get this, you need something that's ground to the texture of like a powder almost.
Exactly.
So, side note, there's a lot of flour in this, so it says 5 to 6 cups. So
Whoa.
it kind of depends on the consistency of the bread as we go. So I'm going to
Okay.
start and we'll see. Go ahead and keep going.
And what's interesting, Miss Jen, is one thing that, and you know, I rely on you to bake me all my things because you're such a great baker.
Oh,
So
well, that's
Miss
good.
Jen
That's
always
good.
surprises me, friends, with different baked goods. But one thing that I do know is that there's such things as dry ingredients and wet ingredients.
That's true. And that's a good point. When you bake, I've been teaching my own kids this. The wet ingredients you can pretty much do anything to. They're very forgiving, meaning you can't really hurt them or do too much to them. The dry ingredients, which usually is mainly your flour amongst other things, this is where you get gluten. Gluten is like the sticky kind of gluey structure that cookies and brownies and breads have.
It has glue right in the name.
Right, exactly, it is like glue. So if you do it too much, has anyone ever had a cookie or brownie? Now, it's really no such thing as a bad cookie or brownie, but
No.
maybe it's a little chewier than you kind of like normally, or it's not quite
Yes,
a little
I
stiff
dump those
or
in
tough.
milk.
Yeah, and so that usually means that you've overworked or possibly beat the dry ingredients too much.
Got it.
So once we start working with the dry ingredients, we want to not stir maybe quite as much. The wet, you can't really go. So usually they're separated. So I did all my wet ingredients. Now we're going to start adding some dry. So here is cup number 1. We got to keep track of these cups here, Miss Niki.
Cup 1, I'll hold with one hand and whip with the other.
And I'm going to start stirring here.
Shake.
Now I will say too, friends, a lot of people, including me sometimes, use an electric mixer for this, which would probably make it a lot easier. So we'll see. We're going to try to really get it blended well, because we got to get that flour blended. And we're going to do 1 cup at a time. So I'm blending in my flour. You want to try to get the lumps out and get all the ingredients to cooperate. We're just going to keep stirring. And the more solid I add, the more flour I add, the more solid this will all be. Yeah, how is it? It's much quieter, guys.
Yeah.
I will say the butter seems much quieter.
Getting quieter. Still pretty liquid though.
Okay, I'm going to add a 2nd cup of flour. Yeah, I'm not hearing like thunk thunk in there though. Miss
No,
Niki.
yes. Based on our sense of sound, we're starting to get, it's more of like one big clump instead of a,
Okay, but that's a good sign.
yes, like maybe a little bit more of a ball or.
So, and then the interesting thing that I love about this, Miss Niki, is you're gonna go from the liquid to the solid, and then if you keep going, this is amazing, friends, the fat is going to separate out, and you're gonna end up with a liquid again at a more firm solid, because whipping cream is kind of airy, right?
Right.
It's very light and airy. Butter is not. We've all had butter.
Yep.
So what happens is we go through that whipping cream, and the fat molecules are going to separate out from the remaining liquid, and you're going to get 2 different distinctive things.
And I bet that goes to our density too, because molecules have different densities.
Yes, so your liquid is a lot less dense. And guess what, friends? I'm sure you've maybe heard of this too. What you're getting in that point then is we go past whipping cream, and we end up with butter and buttermilk.
Ooh.
So if you've ever heard of buttermilk pancakes or
Yeah.
buttermilk fried chicken, that is, so you literally can keep the other part too.
Okay.
Look at this, you guys. It almost looks like oatmeal to me, Miss Niki.
Yeah, you're right. It does very much look like.
So that's 3 cups of flour.
And it's smelling even more yeasty.
Yes, more like the bread that we know.
Yes.
Okay, so that's 3. I'm going to add another one in a minute.
Okay.
You don't want to overmix. So this is going to be number 4.
I'm gonna check in on my
Oh,
other
yeah.
one. Now you can hear what this one shakes. It's like a storm outside.
Yeah, it's almost like hail hitting the roof or...
Now I haven't been shaking this one the whole time because maybe it will need less since we have things inside to help it move around more, heat it up a little bit more.
That's true. It would be very interesting to see how much less time it might take.
Sounds a little bit like a drum.
I will say also, you guys, you can definitely make butter or bread with the aid of like an electric mixer. We just
Yes.
wanted to try it for fun, and it's much more science if we're doing it slowly and step by step.
Yes.
But
And we can also pretend that we are living 150 years.
that's right.
When those were living.
Some of these first meals or whatever.
Yes. Our great-great-great-grandparents
That's
had
right.
to do.
All right, I'm gonna get closer and show you guys again,
Sounds
because this
good.
has gotten really thick. This is 4.
Alright, I'm shaking so much, I'm gonna take my hat off. So I'm gonna shake it right off my head.
This is very thick now, you guys. Look at,
Whoa, Miss Jen!
very thick.
It's more solid than liquid, like you were saying.
It is, and that was 4. So I think after one more, we'll see. We'd probably be ready to knead the dough. So let me do that. Let's do
You
one more.
need dough, but we have some dough.
I know.
Just kidding, friends, just kidding.
It's special KNEAD, and that means to work the dough and move the dough.
So it's not like we knee it with our knee then.
No, or that we have I need something in my life, even though I do
Right.
need bread and butter in my life.
So there's
But that's not it.
lots of meanings to the word knee.
That's right. This almost looks like kind of a big glob of bread, Miss Nick, like an unbaked. It's very formed in one giant thing.
I feel like it's gone from oatmeal to mashed potatoes.
Yes, very thick. So look at this, you guys.
Ooh.
Sticky, but
There's
look,
that
but then
glue.
it comes off, meaning it won't stay completely. So that's kind of what we want. All
And
right.
kneading is sort of like stretching the dough, isn't it, Miss Jen?
It is. What you're doing is working that. Remember I told you don't overwork it, but with bread you do need a certain amount. Here we go, you guys.
Oh, look at that. Bread and butter, Tom. Bread and butter, Tom.
That's right. So with kneading, you're just going to kind of keep moving it around.
And I want to give a shout out while we're doing this, Miss Jen.
Yes.
To all of our viewers and our friends who love to watch us and who tune in.
Yes.
And who send pictures of all their works to us,
Oh
because
my gosh, we love that.
we love that you guys are doing this at home with your families.
Yes.
Hi, Jordan out there.
Hi, Jordan.
And Drew and Vinny.
Oh my gosh. We see so many friends we see a
Yes.
lot. We really appreciate it.
We love that you guys tune in, and we love to hear about your stories as a steamer with your family.
Yes. If you have ideas for other STEAM things you'd like to see, we'd love that.
Yes.
Miss
And-
Nikki, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
could you do me a favor, grab the flour?
Flour.
And I'm gonna have you just, because my hands are insane.
Don't touch the flour.
Could you grab, just even sprinkle a little, you can grab a spoon, just a little bit, because I feel like it's sticking a little too much.
Okay.
It's a kind of an art, this part, versus a science. Thank
Fair
you so
enough.
much. Let's try it and see.
Okay.
Because we want it moving around and doing its thing,
Okay.
but not sticking too much, and it's kind of gluey on my hands here, so I'm gonna keep going though. So it is coming, pretty far apart, but it's just seeming a little gluey.
So a little more.
Yeah, let's try a little more,
A little sprinkle.
because my hands are,
Sprinkle,
a fun mess here.
Sprinkle, sprinkle.
it is fun though. I like getting messy in the kitchen too, because it's a
That's right.
perfect reason.
So if you want to see what flour looks like, friends, I've got some flour on my hands.
Yes, she does.
And my nose. So I've lost my hat, Miss Jen, because I was shaking so much.
Oh my gosh.
And it's all for the sacrifice of some good bread and butter.
That's
It's
right.
Worth it.
It's totally worth it.
I've got 2 butters going. Ooh, now I definitely know this is thickening up. I don't hear it hardly
Okay.
at all.
Ooh, I love that, because that's a sign
It is a
that
sign.
it's progressing.
I have to put more muscle into it now.
If you happen to be a family out there that does bread a lot, and you're like, uh-oh, it's not looking good, you could be right. I have no idea, but we'll see. But it is coming apart as I stretch it, so. And then, just to look ahead a little bit, shortly, and this is gonna be interesting, Miss Nikki and I, we are gonna do this in segments,
Yes.
because bread takes a lot of resting again, or proofing, as Miss Nikki and I mentioned earlier. And what that means is, we're gonna set this in a bowl, cover it to keep it warm,
Yes.
and give it time to let those carbon dioxide bubbles we talked about expand and hopefully make the dough even bigger. So
Yes.
we have to let it rest for about an hour.
An hour. Miss
Yes. So although we know you'll miss us, we'll take a time out at that point
Jen. Yes.
and let it do its thing for a little bit, and then we'll come back to you and let you know how
I'll
it's
keep
doing.
shaking though.
Yes.
So you can see around the rim, it is sort of thick there. It's getting thick around that rim. And if we go to the other one, you can see it still has bubbles. Lots of bubbles, which is where we were with the other one in the glass jar when we first started, after about 5 minutes. So it looks like we still have some shaking to do, Miss Jen.
It is changing though, for sure.
It sure is. They both are.
So the big question, friends, and we won't know, which is kind of the fun part of surprise of bread. When we do this, we're gonna leave it for about an hour, is did it work, right? Did it get bigger? Did it grow like it's supposed to?
Right.
It will really depend on how that carbon dioxide yeast reaction went, so it's hard to say.
Look at all this stuff that kind of got stuck in the bowl.
Yes, that happens too.
Sticky.
So we wanna remove that, so it doesn't
Yep.
stick to that, and give it a nice little oil bed instead, that it will not stick to, so.
And friends, do you guys ever do any cooking or baking at your house? Do you help moms and dads? or grandparents, or a grown-up,
Yeah.
or brothers and sisters.
Babysitter, whoever, yeah.
Or maybe you just like to experiment.
Yes.
I know when I was little, Miss Jen, I used to love experimenting with different flavors.
Me too. And I've made many a mistake in the kitchen, let me tell you.
Same.
One time I was all excited, made these cookies, had done, I used flour instead of sugar. That was a problem. They tasted horrible. And another time I made this homemade cake recipe, went to take it out and it was raw in the middle and the whole thing just slid out.
Oh,
So
no.
yes, these things happen. All right, look at this, you guys. We have kind of our ball of
Nice and
dough.
shiny, because it's all oily, slick.
All right. So my bread dough is gonna go in there.
Plop.
It is really clinging. There we go.
Doesn't want to leave you,
It doesn't
Miss
want
Jen.
to leave. And we're gonna kind of move it around a little to coat it in the oil, a little bit.
Doug the dough just really likes you.
It's just really hanging out there. All right, I don't know if you want to show them, Miss Niki.
Sure, okay. I'm going to give you guys a close-up of Doug the dough.
So what we're gonna do then is cover it with a damp cloth and leave it. Another interesting thing, because you do kind of want a warm space for it, is our library warm enough? Or what is warm enough? You know, because everybody's house or space is different. So we run around 68 to 70 degrees here at the library. So we're gonna cover it, and we're gonna give it an hour. My hands are still all sticky, but it is keeping a nice shape in the bowl, so we'll see.
And got our damp towels.
All right, we're gonna cover that, and then we'll check it in an hour, and we'll let you guys know. We'll see what's happening with the whipped cream / butter and the dough.
Yes.
All right,
We'll see you soon.
see you soon.
Hi friends, I've been shaking this butter, and you can see now it's definitely getting to be more of a thicker consistency. It's not sticking to the glass anymore. It's more of a liquid, but we've got some more shaking to do. We'll see you soon. Was that a good knead for
Was
you?
it a good knead or a good proof, Miss Niki?
Yes, I had a very good rest or a good knead.
So we're gonna, through the magic of technology, we're about an hour later.
Yes, I'm a little bit older. Can you see that wrinkle?
I don't see it.
Okay.
So the bread theoretically, hopefully, got bigger because those carbon dioxide bubbles released from the yeast interacting
It's like
with eating
burping
the
bubbles.
sugar, eating the flour and the sugar. And then we've been working with the cream.
Oh, my hands are so tired, friends.
Oh my gosh, Miss Niki was working up a sweat.
So remember that we were doing a comparison. So we were looking at just our shaking and our whipping in our glass container. And then we were doing one in our plastic container, but we had some beating assistance, which was our marbles. So I'm gonna...
Hoping that maybe you'd be shaking plus have the internal agitation. to make it
Exactly.
faster.
Right, like a washing machine.
Exactly.
All right, so I'm noticing some differences just with my eyes. And I'll bring them up to you all. You can tell me if this looks like something you would want to put on your bread. So you can see, just like Miss Jen had said, we have a solid forming. It's soft, but it's definitely a solid. And then it's separating with that liquid. So we were talking about that butter and the milk.
Yep, so now we have our butter and our buttermilk.
Oops, and a little bit of a spill.
There's the buttermilk.
And with our other one, our dishwasher one, we can see, or our washing machine, it's still a little bit liquidy, but it's getting to that foam stage. So no separation just yet. So right now, I would say that having marbles or something inside has not improved our shaking at all.
It has not decreased or
No.
quickened the time at all.
Not at all.
It made it any less of a workout. The big question is the bread. So we're gonna knead it for another minute. We're gonna see if it's risen. And then if it has, you're gonna punch it down and then knead it for a minute to kind of work that again. And then it'll go in our loaf pan.
Okay.
Which this recipe, friends, makes 2 loaves. So we're gonna do a different experiment that we didn't plan. We have 1 loaf pan. So we're gonna do it in this. And the other one might cook in the bowl. Or we might put it on a cookie sheet and just see what happens. Will it explode in the oven? I don't know.
Will it become a bowling ball because we're cooking it in a bowl?
Or if it didn't rise very nicely, is it gonna be a giant lump? We'll see. All right, here we go.
All right, drum roll.
Ooh,
Woo!
it did puff up quite a bit
I
because it
see
was
that.
a tiny ball.
Wow, Miss Jen, it's definitely getting more full.
It is.
Look at all that carbon dioxide in there. And I'm noticing too, Miss Jen, that the oil is starting to precipitate just a little bit.
That's true. Maybe from the moisture because there was a damp towel over it. So
I think that's probably true. So it's growing.
all right, so I'm gonna
The bubbles are blowing.
put it out.
Get out of there, Doug Doe.
We're gonna punch it, and then I'm gonna just knead for a minute.
Miss Jen, what did that dough ever do to you?
I know, it's kind
Punching
of a
it.
little bit intense. And then again, very sticky, but it pulls away.
Okay.
So here we go with the doughy mess again.
So does that mean that, I remember last time, that when it was starting to get a little sticky, you said, sprinkle some flowers in there, some flour in there, Miss Nikki. Is that what we need?
I think we're okay, because
Okay.
it is pulling away.
Ah, so we're doing that stretching then.
Yes,
huh?
the gluten, we're activating the gluten again.
So it wants to stretch, but it also wants to
Come back,
right back to its shape.
kind of like our rubber bands.
Yes,
And the
like our
exploding
rubber
pumpkins.
bands.
It's got some
Man,
form, but
this is, if you're feeling angry, I feel like this is, making bread and butter is a really good way to get your frustrations out.
that's true.
And then you
get
get a
your
treat at
arm
the end.
workout. That's right. Which hopefully we're gonna share with our friends that we work with after.
I mean, we'll see. I might want it all.
Take it home. And pour just a little bit of the oil in, and we're gonna spread it
Got
around
Okay.
so that this doesn't stick too much. And then I'm gonna take half the dough. I'm gonna separate it out.
All right. And so what exactly are we putting the oil in here for, Miss Jen? Remind me.
Well, I just wanna make sure that as the dough it's gonna expand again, it'll prove again for a little bit. And then we're gonna bake it, and we don't want it to it is very sticky, as you guys can see. So we
Right,
don't want
that-
it being stuck to the
last-
pan to the point where,
Okay.
and we also oiled the bowl last time too, so,
So it's being sort of used as a degluer.
yes.
All right, you're greased up, Miss Jen.
I'm gonna put it in there.
All right, now I feel like this is just one pan, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I'm gonna place it in here. So we are gonna give it more time again, you guys, to prove for rest. Not as long this time. And the other thing is we'll see if the leavening doesn't work well, leavening again with the bubbles releasing, it'll be more like a brick. So we'll see
Yes.
after it rises and bakes, what we ended up with. It says punch dough, knead it, which we did. We're gonna let it rise for 30 minutes, so proof or rise or rest. There's a lot of different words for it.
So Doug the Doe has a brother.
He does.
David.
Now they're separated.
Twins.
So we're gonna cover them again and then give them some time to rest, and then the next step will be baking, which we'll show you in a little bit.
All right, we'll see you then.
Thanks, guys. All right, Miss Nikki, so friends,
Round two.
round 2 of our proofing resting in. It looks like a loaf of bread.
Oh my goodness, Douglas is so big.
And then we have his twin,
Yes. it's almost
which is now a
like
different shape.
Yes.
But so we've got a round, which is gonna be very interesting. And then we've got our more standard loaf, so.
Wow, it's like magic, Miss Jen. We
Oh,
started with
yeah.
the little ball, and look at now we have 2 huge things.
And so we've got our chemistry kind of going in
We
action.
do. The carbon dioxide is
It's time
expanding.
to get out.
Slowly forming, I should say.
Still,
This
again,
one?
I feel like yogurty, like thickening,
Yes.
but not the nice clump.
Now
like
this one, you can see,
It definitely
is
has its definitive
completely, yes, but we're in that butter and we're in that milk.
butter and buttermilk. Yes. Oh, there it is.
But it looks like we need a little more shaking because it's not quite at the consistency or the texture that we want.
It's close though.
Close.
Very close.
We're very, very close.
So the next thing will be to bake the actual bread and then work with the butter a little more. So on the recipe, and like I said, we will include a link so you guys can follow the recipe. 350 for anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes, depending on if it's done. And for that, if you've baked at home, you kind of stick a toothpick or something.
Yes.
And if it comes out wet or dragging, then a little bit longer. I always say though, better to check multiple times because once you've overbaked, you can't go back.
Right.
Better to add
Nobody
2
wants
minutes,
to-
add 2 minutes and stuff. So
Absolutely.
I always start at the smaller end of the time frame. So if it's 20 to 30, we're gonna do 20 and see. All right, so we're gonna put these in the oven. We'll see you guys soon.
We'll see you soon.
All right, hey guys, so it's time to put the stuff in the oven. We're in the top secret location inside the library.
Ooh.
But we do have an oven here. So I set it to 350 and gave it time to warm up. So I'm gonna put them in for about 20 minutes and then we'll check on them. And actually I think Miss Nikki's gonna grab them out of the oven a little bit and then we'll continue from there.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
That's right, so here we go.
Douglas the Doe, grow up for us.
There we go. We'll see you in a little bit.
Bonito. Bye. All right, we are opening. Look it, friends. It's risen. And it's also browned. Both of them have gotten bigger. Ooh, look at it's gotten toasty warm on the top. And now let's do our toothpick test. Ooh, I hear it coming in. It's crunchy. All right, what do you think? You see anything on there? Don't really see anything. I think they're good to take out. Okay, that looks so good. And it smells like bread. And it's warm and it looks delicious. I can't wait to eat it. How about the one in the bowl? Let's take a peek. Look it. Got some dark spots, huh? I wonder if that has anything to do with the gluten. Kind of looks like a pancake. Here we go. Ready? What do you see? Do you see any crumbs? Any stickiness? No?
So last we saw, Miss Nikki was pulling our hopeful bread out of the oven.
Yep, we did the toothpick test, Miss Jen.
Okay, yep, to test for done. And that's pretty much any kind of like pastry or bread or brownies thing, cake like that.
Yeah.
Because you do cook, even though it's a solid, it's very liquidy until it forms and makes it solid form, so.
Right, and it might be kind of like the earth, where there's a crusty kind of outside, but inside it gets warmer and more gooey, so you want to make sure it's cooked all the way.
That's true, it can be deceiving for sure, so. And I think we said, I'm just gonna recap too, always start with the lower end of your range. So I think it said 20 to 30 and we did 20.
We did 20.
And I think it was done at the closer end of 20.
It absolutely was.
So yeah, you just never know for sure. So I know Miss Nikki showed you, but yes, we basically had, and our experiment, it basically kept its shape. Here, I'll come closer and show you. So we have the circular, kind of almost like a focaccia looking loaf. And then, yeah, you want to show the other one, Miss Nikki? And this one did puff up pretty well. So our yeast did do its thing for the most part.
It's got kind of a bunish color a little bit.
Yeah, it looks like it could be like a giant hot dog or an hamburger bun or something. So it does look like bread.
Smells like bread, Miss Jen.
It does. And again, I think that's that yeast effect that it has. So why don't we pop one out?
Okay.
Ooh, okay. And then I'm going to slice just a little. So you guys
Let me get
can
a close
see.
up of
Yeah,
this.
let me. Hopefully it is done and hopefully it looks like bread. Boys and girls, usually you need a sharper knife for this, so this is the time, families, to get the grown-ups. Because butter knives, I don't know how well they'll work for bread, so. But Miss Jen is a grown-up and I'm gonna be very careful. Look it! Okay guys, so do you see all these little holes? Miss Nikki, you see those? That is where the little bubbles of CO2 were, and they popped. And they leave this beautiful little tunnels.
Wow.
So we have it. So there's in our loaf shape. And let's try, I'm gonna slide it down. Let's try our circular, just to see if it did anything different. So here's our circular loaf. I'm gonna cut a little piece off again. Same thing. I'm sorry, I slide it over here.
Oh, yep.
You can see. Now, I don't know if maybe there should be more. This was our first attempt, obviously with the yeast, like more of them, but definitely there is some definite throughout openings.
And how would we do that, Miss Jen? How would we make more holes in it?
I think it would again go back to the step with this is the yeast, everybody. So it could be that we didn't let it sit long enough, or maybe the water wasn't quite as warm, because it needs to be a certain, it's almost like reanimating. I was thinking this, almost like Frankenstein, like we need to, it's sitting there dormant, right, inactive. We added the water, kind of brought it back to life, and made it able to then eat the sugar, both in the sugar and the flour that we provided it. So,
Gotcha. So Frankenbread.
Exactly, yeah, Frankenbread, just in time for the holidays. So
That's right. And with bread comes butter.
butter, yes.
So, as you all remember, my hand hurt so much after my arm was so tired.
Yes.
But we did manage to make a completely solid.
Yes. It is
Kind of
solid
see it.
form.
It's solid, it's not going anywhere. Is you would need to, when it first becomes solid, remember like Miss Jen said, we've got our butter, but then we still have some milk left over.
Yes.
The fat has separated.
That's right.
So you have to drain
The buttermilk.
the buttermilk out.
Now you could keep it. I mean, I'm not real familiar with working with it. I have to be honest. I would like research that. But if you use buttermilk ever, you could try it at home and decide like food safety wise, refrigerate it right away and look into it. But it is,
better.
yeah, it is buttermilk. So
Yes.
you could separate it out and keep it. But you definitely want to pour out that water or that buttermilk. So now if you were going to eat the butter, you'd pour that buttermilk out. You could rinse the solids. You could form it into shapes. There
Yes,
are butter
you
molds.
could.
So
There
it's
are.
really cute.
I've had lamb butter
Yeah,
before.
flowers
Yeah.
I've seen, so seashells, whatever you want.
Yes.
But you'd also probably want to put a little salt. I mean, you could try it without. You can
Yes.
always sample a tiny,
So
tiny
maybe
bit.
should we put a little on?
We could.
What do you think? Ooh,
It's
pretty.
very thick,
Very thick.
so I don't even know if it'll spread on there, but
Try it out. So you can see, oops, that we got some butter on there.
we do. Unfortunately, with our mask, we can't eat it right now, but we will let you know. We'll see what we think.
Yeah.
And if you guys try it at home, please let us know. Did the bread turn out? Did you have more holes and did it look more open than Miss Jen and Miss Niki's?
Right, do you have any advice for us?
Did you flavor your butter?
Yes.
Because I mean, one thing I did at home once was add garlic. Oh my gosh, so make garlic butter. And I've done honey cinnamon,
Ooh.
which is fun for like pancakes or muffins and things.
Oh, but
so
at least we can enjoy some of this delicious bread and butter
that's right.
on
Yeah.
our own when we're at home
That's true.
in our houses.
We've got that option. So,
Yes.
so we hope you guys try it. Remember that baking is fun. It's math. It's science. But most of all, it's fun. It's fun to do with your family or your friends.
Absolutely, and it's fun to share.
Yes.
So not only do you get to share in the science, you get to share in the reward.
That's right. The best part. Patiently waiting.
That's right. Well, we hope you had as much fun as we did in the kitchen today, or the library, wherever you happen to choose to do your baking.
That's right.
And that you will see us again soon in our next Family STEAM.
That's right. You guys have a wonderful holiday season. We'll see you soon.
That's right. Signing out, bread and butter.
Bye.
Bye.